Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the JLJ podcast. It's your boy Jackie. I'm here with my man JVK.
How's it going, guys?
Also here with Matho.
How's it going, guys?
And we've got a very big episode for you guys. The home and away season is over, and we're keen to kick it off. We can talk about the under-22s All-Australian as well. So we'll have a cheeky chat about that, and also the All-Australian squad, some players we thought probably should have made it in there. But we'll start off with our round review with Matho with the West Coast North Melbourne game.
Yeah, so Jacko, West Coast North. West Coast wasn't as comfortable win as they would have hoped. I wouldn't have thought. 15 points in the end or something, I believe. But no Yo for the Eagles. Obviously, he was missing that game, and I think a fair few of their injuries were out as well. But it's also just come out in the media, no Elliot Yo for Eagles in the finals. How far do you reckon they can go without Elliot Yo?
I think it's Elliot Yo out for the first final. So, so they'll get him back. They should sweep Collingwood quite comfortably at the Optus. I wouldn't be surprised they win by 40 points, considering how poor Collingwood are. So I think they should be fine with Yo will be back for that second final.
Yeah.
I agree. I still think they're winning it. Still reckon West Coast are going to win the premiership this year. The odds have them about $12, which is pretty good money if anyone wants to bet safely.
If you're a betting man, you jump on that.
If you're a betting man, yeah, exactly right. But yeah, I think that Yo's definitely a big out, but I don't think he's that big of an out. Looking at how good and how strong their list is and how in depth their list is, so yeah, I think they're fine without him for the first final against Collingwood.
There you go. Also, guys, North Melbourne, massive club clean-out. As we've seen, 11 players delisted the other day and subject to more. And Sean Higgins rumoured that he's allowed to look for his options elsewhere. What's your thoughts on the club clean-out?
Yeah, well, I think they're just really getting rid of a lot of players. So, of course, they're saying Sean Higgins probably wouldn't be available to get rid of. They've openly said Ben Brown is going. I'm sure if a player wants to get Jared Pollock, they could get him quite easily because, he hasn't been getting, regular game time that he would be expected considering the quality of player he is. So, yeah, they're pretty much just getting rid of all their senior players. Their only decent senior player they'll have left is, Robbie Tarrant probably. So they're going to struggle next year with having a lot of players going out. Out of those players, though, who did get cleaned out, you wouldn't see many of them being picked up by another club. I think the only one that could is Jasper Pittard.
Yeah.
He's still a decent player. Marley Williams is also decent, but I don't think he'd get picked up again just because he's quite old now. Some of the other players like Jack Dawes never going to get picked up. Wood's not going to get picked up. Yeah,
I agree.
You look at their list and they've still got players like Cullington, but Cullington you might as well write him off for half the year because of how bad his back is.
Mm-hmm.
And yet if they get rid of all those senior players, then who's players like Simpkin and Anderson stuff gonna look up to for experience? And yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do if they got to flush out players like they have, but do they really need to flush out even more players? Do they need to keep a Higgins or a Ben Brown or someone like that at the club, or do you guys reckon Pollock as well? They should just all get rid of him and completely restart.
I think they still need to keep, I think, the spine at least, full forward. Probably not a centre-half forward because it'll be too hard, and I don't even know if they really have two key forwards. A midfielder, probably even two, and a big defender, obviously, in Robbie Tarrant. But I think it's going to be a very long process for North now. Obviously, coming from experience, I know Carlton's rebuild was very, very long. I think Hawthorn might have to go through a similar process with their older players, but I think with North, they're pulling power as well. I can't really see it doing too well. I know, obviously, in recent times, their attempts at trying to sign big fish hasn't gone very well, even offering big money.
Yeah.
So I think it will be a very lengthy process for them to get back to that top side. But in the 11 players that we mentioned earlier, I 100% agree with none of them really getting picked up other than probably Pittard and Williams. But at best, I reckon they're even just VFL players or even top-up players for the list even. But it'll be interesting to see where North go from here.
Yeah. Also, considering that, a lot of rumours of list sizes will be shrunk next year. So a lot of those types of players won't be able to find new homes because,
Yeah.
they would just be, those players that, play maybe once or twice a year, things like that.
Exactly. Into the votes, 3 for Jed Anderson. He did get delisted a couple of days later, which is very, very weird. But then he obviously got re-signed, I think, on the rookie list for a 1-year contract. 2 votes to Liam Ryan and 1 vote to Jai Simpkin. I think he was pretty good for North as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. With that delisting thing, that's what clubs do all the time. They delist a player, pick him up the next day on a rookie contract just to be able to put him on less money and, save the club's salary cap because a rookie contract is nowhere near the maximum amount or the minimum amount you have to pay for a senior contract.
Yeah.
So I know someone like Clay Beams of Brisbane, I think we delisted him 4 times in a row and picked him on a rookie contract every year after that. He only played, a couple of times during those years, but that's what they kept doing.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Mm.
Oh, well, on to the next game.
On to the next game, the St Kilda GWS, St Kilda had to win to stay a chance. GWS pretty much out of it, and St Kilda got the job done against, once again, a struggling GWS side. I think the real question is how far can the Saints go in the finals, boys?
I think either St Kilda or Western Bulldogs. I reckon either team that win, and then I don't think they can get any further than the next round, to be completely honest. Western Bulldogs could cause an upset and maybe get to the prelim, but I can't see them going all the way, again, similar to their premiership winning season. But I hope they prove me wrong. I wouldn't mind either of them side going all the way, but I don't know. That's just my prediction.
Would love to see either of them along with West Coast because my prediction, and even Brisbane to win the premiership. I do see Bulldogs beating the Saints though in the first finals game, and I got my prediction right with the Saints making finals from the start of the year, but I don't think they're gonna win the first final. Not enough finals experience in that side, and I think Bulldogs can definitely surprise people again. Maybe not a grand final, but as Matho said, prelim could definitely be a possibility.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I'm the same. I think they're going to get knocked out first game to the Bulldogs.
Great.
Yeah. So, but also, I guess another talking point is GWS, what do they do from here? Of course, Zach Williams pretty much confirmed leaving the club, going to Carlton. Aiden Cole exploring his options in Melbourne. Jeremy Cameron, a lot of people talking about he might be leaving as well. Caniglio not happy, being dropped and, all that stuff. So what do GWS have to do to get back to that, competing for prelims and grand finals like they were last year?
I know that I think we've mentioned this earlier, but Brett Deledio did come out and say that they are too much of an individual side. When it goes to shit, too many of them try and stand up and do it all on their own instead of working as a team. I think they've definitely got the players there, but I think maybe behind the scenes, the coaches and stuff like that may need to change the mentality at the club, just to make them work together. Like they've definitely got a big list, a very good list, strong players there, but I think their salary cap's also an issue, obviously with a fair few players leaving. But I mean, it's interesting. It will be interesting to see where they go next, I think. A very strong side in the last few years, but I think this is the start of their downfall. And they may turn into a Gold Coast side of the last few years, being a new club into the competition and just struggling, I think.
I think it's all about the club culture. Definitely, like you said, Matho, at GWS at the moment, they got to get a ruckman, obviously. That's been a pretty bad point for them for a while now. I still reckon they got the names. I think if they can get the club culture back in and getting everyone playing together, because you look at their list. I think it's a great list, and you bring a ruckman in there, a younger ruckman, that has potential to do well. I still think they could be a top 8 side next year, and they would definitely be in my consideration to make the top 8 next year if they can do those things.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the biggest thing is I think people underestimate how important Phil Davis is to that side. Considering now that they've really struggled without him for the last month or so. So they have to, really look at getting another key defender because Phil Davis, is coming to the end of his career.
Yeah.
He's getting old now. Nick Haynes isn't going to take the big Tom Hawkins and Josh Kennedy sort of thing. He's going to be the interceptor and stuff like that. So I think they just need, a key defender. And of course, as VK said before, ruckman with, them trying to copy what the Bulldogs did. They had Tom Green going in the ruck a couple of times. Canigilo was in the ruck a couple of times. So trying to copy what Bulldogs do with Dunkley and stuff like that. Obviously didn't work out with them when St Kilda kicked a lot of goals from stoppages.
Yeah. Also, just on GWS's list, Zach Williams to Carlton. I think that's a very good signing. It's almost pretty much done. Obviously, it can't be done yet. But apparently a 4 or 5 year deal at Carlton is agreed. So should be interesting. And I think is a good replacement for the outgoing Cade Simpson.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
Absolutely.
As I said before, that he was coming to Carlton. It's going to be a good signing for them. A bit of hardness off the half back line, but also can go into the midfield as well if needed.
Exactly.
He's been injured a fair bit this season, but he was quite good last year. So
yeah. And I think he gives another option for Carlton now. Pushes other players into positions that they prefer. I know Sam Petrevski-Seaton's not the best player going around, but he's proved himself in the midfield. I think he's much better in the midfield than what he is down back. And I think putting Zach Williams in the back line can hopefully push Petrevski-Seaton into the midfield where he's supposed to be playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Onto the votes for Saints GWS. Jack Still another 3 votes. He's going to come very close in the JJ Brownlow to Pipping Lockie Neal. 2 to Marshall, who's had a really outstanding year, and I think he could be one of the best ruckmen in the competition come a couple of years' time. And 1 to Lockie Whitfield, who, once again had 30-odd touches and really only GWS's player all year.
Yeah.
VK, move on to Aston vs Melbourne.
So the Dons, I mean, it was a pretty weird game. We started off in the lead at quarter time, and it was the second quarter outburst from Melbourne that just absolutely took over, and then we made a late push in the last quarter. A few weird decisions from the coaches. Hurley up forward to start off the game, which I thought, all right, we'll try something new last game of the season. And then as soon as we started playing bad, threw Hurley back in the back line. It ended up working in the last quarter. But I thought we should have kept Hurley up there and given it more of a chance in the last game. Who really cares? Woosha era now over. As we saw, as in walking off with Bell Chambers at the end of the game, Rutten's got a big task now, a big task at Essendon, especially with the rumours of players leaving.
Mm-hmm.
With Sard, who I don't know why Sard would stay. Why would you? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't. Or I would become Essendon supporter. But if I was one of you two and I was playing AFL and I was at Essendon right now and I had the opportunity to leave, I'd be out of there straight away. I think Danaher will be out. Fantasia going off to Adelaide, one of the Adelaide clubs most likely. Melbourne just to miss as well, boys. And speaking of missing, Stephen May to miss the All-Australian. A lot of outrage from a lot of the supporters, obviously a lot of Melbourne supporters about it after he had a great year. Do you think he was robbed of making the All-Australian squad?
No. He was never going to make the team. He's...
Yeah.
In terms of key defenders, you have Harris Andrews, Jacob Wiedering, Darcy Moore, Nick Haynes, Jordan Ridley. Who else? Robbie Tarrant in front of him. So no, he wasn't robbed. He was never going to make the team. And, he's not, the top 5 key defender in the competition or whatever. So.
Yeah, I agree with Jacko. I think credit to him. He had a great season at Melbourne. Probably one of their best players this year, behind Petrarca and Oliver.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the back line for the All-Australian side is almost a guaranteed lock, with a fair few of the players in the squad obviously guaranteed a spot. But I honestly can't see him making the team. So if he's not going to make the team, what's the point of putting him in the squad? So
that's definitely fair enough.
Yeah, exactly.
And lad, go Jacker.
Yeah, and when they talk about it for the key positions, Stephen May's name's not even going to be mentioned. They put him in the squad. He's going to be Stephen May. No. All right. Let's move on to discussion between Wiedering, Moore, and Andrews, if they play all three or just two of them.
Exactly.
Definitely fair enough. And I think the back line's going to be quite interesting. We all had Shepherd in that back pocket. Maybe he doesn't make it anymore. Do you guys see like a Jordan Ridley? Because Ridley's not going to be centre-half back, full-back. He was comfortably Essendon's best player this season. Close with McGrath, but McGrath was injured near the end. But do you see him maybe slipping into a back pocket? Or a half-back?
Yeah, he definitely could.
Yeah, I see him slipping in. I definitely think that he deserves a spot for the season that he's had. I don't think he can, like you said, VK, make a full-back or centre-half back, but if he's not in them positions, I think he maybe deserves a spot on the bench. But yeah,
I'd love him to make it, but I just don't see it. I maybe call me a pessimistic Essendon supporter or whatever, but I'd love him to make it, and he deserves it. Like it's very close. I wouldn't say he's an outstanding. Like he has to be in there, but I don't see him making it. But moving on to the votes for this game, Langdon, who had a big game, it wasn't that hard against the struggling Essendon side, except for the last quarter. He had 13 marks, around I think it was 22 touches. Mitch Brown with the 2 votes, ex-Essendon from last year. We offered him a contract. I thought he got delisted. We actually offered him a contract. I thought we just delisted him because he didn't want to play, because we didn't want him, but we offered him a contract, but he said no. Went off to Melbourne, and this is what Essendon's problem is. What I've noticed is we make mediocre players look really, really good. And if I'm a mid-level AFL player and I'm going up against Essendon, I'm excited because Mitch Brown, 13 marks, 20 touches, he 2 shots on goal. He played awesome, got the 2 votes, and then Petrarca keeps getting votes for us. He gets the 1.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a big one with Essendon that I don't think any of their midfielders or forwards have accountability. Like you'll never see Dylan Shield tracking back. You never see Zach Merritt trying to track back. You never see Heppel tracking back. All those players. The only defensive-minded midfielder in there is McGrath, of course, being a back pocket when he was first drafted.
Yeah.
Fantasia. Not Fantasia. Parrish will never track back. All those midfielders who are all, single-minded. They're going to run ahead of the ball. A lot what all the GWS players do. All their midfielders run ahead of the ball and try and get a cheap kick out there.
They're attacking midfielders.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's why so many players can dominate against Essendon is because none of their midfielders will go stand next to someone and try and stop them from getting the ball.
Definitely.
That's
coaching as well. I don't get that. Don't think they get told to stand there. I think it just you play your own game, but we're not good enough. Our midfield's not good enough to play our own game. We're not a Brisbane. Yeah. So man up on someone and get back like what McGrath does. Definitely.
Yeah.
Just quickly, VK, how do you reckon Rutten will go?
It's such an uncertainty, isn't it, really? Like what we've been saying on the podcast the last few weeks, I'm not certain on this Rutten transition phase that happened this year. Yeah, I mean, only time will tell. He's been given a pretty tough task, especially with the players leaving. I see us being 12th, 13th, 14th again next year, and I've always said this, one of the most inconsistent, unpredictable sides in the competition, and I'm struggling to predict or have a really good thought process of what we're going to be in the next few years.
Do you have optimism for the transition phase like Mick Malthouse and Nathan Buckley had?
You know me, I never really have any optimism for Essendon at all, especially in recent times. But you got to have some going into a new season, going into a new phase. So yeah, a little bit of optimism. It's some new faces, some new stuff coming in. Hopefully, we get a couple of good players through the draft. Play more of the young kids. So, McGrath, Ridley getting better, Parrish getting better. Langford looked really good this year, 4th in our best and fairest. So yeah, I think that you got to have a little bit of optimism, but definitely not. I don't know if it's going to go as well as the Buckley one though.
Yeah. Worst case scenario and best case scenario, what are they?
Oh, well, I want a premiership. That's what I want.
Yeah. So best
you talking
case,
next year? You talking in the next few years?
Next year. So top 8 obviously would probably be best case scenario.
Best case, yeah. Well, win a final. I'm sick of settling for making the first round of the finals, getting absolutely dominated, If we're going to do it, we properly go for it and we win a final, or we go low on the ladder and we properly rebuild. It's got to be one of the two. We can't be sitting in the middle like North Melbourne have in the past few years, and you've seen how that's gone for them, and see how it's gone for us as well. So, yeah, I think it's going to have to be one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
Definitely fair enough. VK again, back-to-back, going over the Richmond-Adelaide game. Richmond-Adelaide.
Yeah, so Adelaide took it to them a bit straight away, but it was just too good with the class of Richmond, with players such as Edwards, who just came straight back in, and it's like he hasn't missed a game of football. So clean, never misses targets, so good on the clearances. I think Richmond are comfortably the favourites now for me, and it'll be amazing if they win it again 3 and 4 years. It's a pretty good effort from the Tigers. I hope they don't win it. They've had their success. They can stop now. Hopefully, a Brisbane, St Kilda, Bulldogs, someone like that can get some success this year. Adelaide's a pretty successful into the year, actually. They know their vision. They know where they're going. How long do you think it'll be for Adelaide from here till they can push for a top 8?
Towards the back end of the 3 years, Jack, I reckon.
No, that's me.
I mean, towards the back end of the year, their young players did really step up. They finished well, to be fair. Won 3 of the last 4, and they went against amazing sides, but they look strong in them games. But I reckon 2-3 years as well. Yeah, I can't see them being too great in the next few years. Obviously, with the rumours of players leaving as well. The Crouch brothers, Tex Walker not looking like he's going to be around much longer either. So it just looks hard. Rory Sloane's not getting any better either, so it'll just be hard.
2 to 4 definitely is fair enough. So onto the votes, Dusty, who's starting to pull a bit now. I think he'd be pushing for our probably top 10 in the JLJ. Brownlow, Edwards, like I said before, came back like he hadn't missed any games. And Riley O'Brien from Adelaide, one of the big positives, I think, of this year, looking really good as an up-and-coming young ruckman. He'd be the kind of ruckman, as I was saying before, that GWS would want. I think they're not going to get him, but a player like that would be very good for the GWS list.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. All right, move on to Matho, the Brisbane Carlton game.
Yeah, so it was hard to allocate this game, Jacko. Obviously, you as Brisbane and me as Carlton, so I suppose we can go through it together. But once again, a shit quarter from Carlton ruins it for them. I don't think we played a full 4 quarters of footy all year. But an interesting stat that I've got here in the little notebook for you, VK, right? First quarter, Carlton kicked 4 goals to Brisbane's 3. The second quarter is obviously when Brisbane got on top, 5 goals to 1 behind. Then the third quarter was Carlton 2 goals to Brisbane's 1. And then the fourth quarter was 4 goals to Carlton and 2 goals to Brisbane. So you look at the stats like that, and it's that 1 quarter each game that lets us down, that stuff.
If you can fix that, though, then it's definitely big. Get a couple new players in. I still got high hopes for Carlton next year.
Exactly. Jacko, Daniel Rich, he's gotten the 3 votes in this game. How did you see him play?
Yeah, of course. I've said many times he's the best kick in the competition by far. As I say every week, Caleb Daniel will never kick a ball more than 30 metres to someone. When Daniel Rich kicks it 50 metres every single time and hits the play every single time. You know, they saw those 2 goals they kicked against Carlton in the first half, you know, both of them from pretty much 60 metres or so, you know, and he cleared, 5 rows back. So, you know, the way that he can kick the ball is a true talent. And, you know, we sort of missed that when he was out with his hamstring injury and also with his suspension when he sling tackled someone. But, yeah, so that's probably why he got the 3 votes, and he's crucial for the Brisbane Lions game plan.
Yeah, for sure. Lockie Neal again, 2 votes. Almost a lock for both the JLJ Brownlow and the AFL Brownlow. I don't know which award's more prestigious, but I'm going with the JLJ.
Definitely.
The 1 vote to Sam Walsh as well, who did just get announced as the Young Player of the Year. Now, that's interesting as well, I think. VK, you were a little bit shocked that Bailey Smith only ended up third.
Yeah, Connor Rosie second. I was very, very confused about. I think it should have been very close between Walsh and Smith. Walsh had like 2.5 times the amount of votes as Smith did. I think Butters definitely had a better year, and Rosie wasn't even the best young player at Port Adelaide. So obviously, second and third you don't get anything for. But I definitely think Smith deserved to be very close to Walsh this season, and could have. I still would have given it. I don't know who I would have given it to, but it's very close between those two.
Yeah, for sure. Also, though, Brisbane at the Gabba. How far do you reckon they can go? Obviously, they've got the home final. If they win, they get another home final and the grand finals there. How far do you reckon Brisbane can go?
Well, I did a quick ladder predictor then, and I don't think we'll beat Richmond first round, just because, you know, that psychological thing that we have over Richmond, and they're just too strong, and they will beat us, I think. But then we end up versing either St Kilda or Bulldogs, and I think we can beat both of those two teams. And then if that happens, we either play, we'll either play Collingwood, West Coast, Port Adelaide, or Geelong. And I think all out of those four teams, I think we can beat all them. So I have us, making us to the prelim against, a Port Adelaide. I think we can beat a Port Adelaide, even though it probably would be at their home ground. But I can still see us beating Port Adelaide or Geelong. So yeah, I can still think we can make it quite far.
Yeah, I think it'll be a very very interesting final series. I reckon a lot of the teams can beat a lot of the other teams. Obviously, there's plenty of rooms for upsets and whatnot, so it should be interesting. We've done the votes. That's about it, really. Zach Williams coming to Carlton, we mentioned that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of players got delisted from Carlton the other day. So, yeah, we'll call it at that.
All right. Moving on to the Hawthorn Gold Coast game, which, was the perfect way to send off two of Hawthorn great players in Paul Peloplo and Ben Stratton. It's two times in the last 2 years, the last round, that Hawthorn have been able to take the piss out of Gold Coast in that final game. Of course, last year, Joe Ruffhead kicked 6 goals against them, considering he played VFL nearly all year because he just wasn't good enough at AFL level anymore. And, it just shows the mentality and level that Gold Coast are at to be able to have, Hawthorn, who've been crap all year, in the last quarter to be able to feed Ben Stratton the ball, to be able to feed Popolo the ball. It just shows, I think, the weak mentality that our Gold Coast players have.
Disappointing end of the year. Definitely disappointing end of the year. But quickly on Hawthorn, news coming in now, Jacko. 21-game player Connor Glass has just called it quits and is off to Island side and watch much Hawthorn. Don't know if he was any good.
Oh, that's a good thing for Hawthorn. He's a joke of an AFL player. No, he's a joke of an AFL player. Yeah, I think it's a good thing for Hawthorn. He's a nothing player. I think the fair word for him is a utility player. He's played off the back line, played on the forward line, played on the wing a little bit. He's been crap in every single position. So even though he is young, I think he's only mid to early 20s. But he's not a good footballer at all. So I don't think Hawthorn will be too worried that he's left.
Yep.
But as I said, Clarko seemed very happy when Poppy was kicking the goal. This, of course, when Stratton kicked that goal. For someone who's perceived in the media as someone who's always angry, someone who doesn't want to have fun, to see that, I think, showed how much he cared for his players. And, of course, as Dunstall said, as Hodgie has said, when they were talking about him, you don't realise how nice of a bloke he is unless you play for him. It'll have the mean guy mentality to the media and to AFL like itself, or if you actually play for the club, you see what type of person he is. And I think that showed when Ben Stratton kicked his goal after 187 games without kicking a goal, which was the record by, it was like 60 games or something.
Yeah.
He had the lead over the second person. So yeah, that was really good. And you know, we one of the moments of the year. Ben Sutton kicking his second of AFL goal.
Definitely.
You know, that meant of game time. But you know, I think the big question is what is next for Hawthorn. You know, what do they do next year and the years leading up to it?
I think similar to, maybe not similar to Adelaide in the way that they were not that bad this year. But I think Hawthorn's biggest problem is they miss probably one or two more key players now, as well as some young players on the list. I think they're slowly turning into just a mediocre side. Well, I think they were that this year. But obviously the Hawthorn era has probably come to an end. Or it did probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But I think they do need some key players to come into the club. Clarko, I think, may need to leave for the club to move forward. That's just my opinion. I think his time's up at Hawthorn. Been there too long, and I think they need a bit of difference now.
I think Clarko is, maybe he's been there too long, but there's no way ever, if he wants to stay there, Hawthorn are not going to get rid of him. What he has done for that club, there is no way he'll be there for a few more years during their rebuilding stage. Now I think that they're going to have to rebuild Hawthorn from here.
Yeah, I think it takes a couple bad seasons for Alex Klassen to get delisted. You know, he's by far the best coach in the competition. You know, when he gets compared to other coaches, you know, you start to laugh at, you know, some of the clubs that they have and the list that they have, and them not being able to do anything with it. You know, I think the only other two coaches that are close to him would be Damien Hardwick. I think is a great coach, and Chris Fagan, also a great coach. Two coaches who have come in with sides close to Alex Clarkson, you know, near the bottom of the table, and be able to bring them up.
Yep.
You know, when people try to compare him to Nathan Buckley, I laugh. Nathan Buckley took a premiership side to nothing. And you try to say he's a good coach. He's the most overrated coach in the AFL, Nathan Buckley. He's not a good coach. He's had a premiership side, take him to nothing. He's taken them to 8th place this year. They're losing their first final.
I tell you what, though, if they win that first final, that's huge.
They're not winning that first final. They're forward.
I agree, but
one of the worst in the competition.
I agree with that.
Their lack of
I
effort.
somewhat agree. I somewhat agree with Nathan Buckley as being overrated, but I don't know if most overrated in the competition is fair.
I think that's a bit. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a great coach.
He's a consistent coach.
Who else is overrated though in the AFL?
I would you say Worsfold after he's won premierships and stuff? Would you say Worsfold pretty overrated?
Worsfold is
what he's done at Essendon.
Yeah,
he was rated before he came to Essendon, though.
Yeah, before, but not now.
Yeah,
Nathan Buckley's still rated.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Leon Cameron.
Leon Cameron is also overrated. Yeah,
he'd be my most overrated.
Yeah, but once again, Leon Cameron took a team that was last to nearly winning premierships.
True.
Yeah, they did make it to the grand final. True. Then again, Buckley did. I suppose, but Buckley already had a premiership side. It's not like he already had. He hasn't gone out, brought in some big players, and got rid of big players either. I think Scott Pendlebury's been there the whole time. So I agree with you, Jacko. I think, but I think he's done well to keep him as a consistent competing side.
If they win that premiership against West Coast, completely different story, but obviously they lost it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, as someone said to me before, you know, he was only one win away from saying a different thing. But yeah, that's the difference between him and Damien Hardwick. Him and Alistair Clarkin is they win that one game that matters when Nathan Buckley didn't. But so got a bit sidetracked there. But we'll go to the votes. Jack Gunston with the 3 votes, who has been rumoured as, you know, maybe exploring other options, considering you won't be in that next premiership window at Hawthorn, which you wouldn't see for being, you know, 5 or 6 years until they probably compete for premierships again. So, it'll be interesting to see if he left. I'd love to have him at Brisbane because I think he is one of the best forwards in the competition. Ends up finishing third in the Coleman this year around a really poor side who, Hawthorn's midfield have the names, but getting the ball out, they are really poor at winning clearances and getting Gunston the ball. So he got the 3 votes. Tom Mitchell with the 2 votes had a good game. And also 1 vote to Dylan Moore, who's one of Hawthorn's young players that was quite impressive. That Matho move on to Sydney Geelong.
Yeah, so a very, very big scare from Sydney early on. I think Sydney, were a little bit unlucky this season. They weren't an amazing side most games, but they were a decent side, competed most weeks, but just couldn't get over the line most games. So I suppose that does warrant for a shit season. But Aliir, I think he was strong for Sydney. Horsey, if you're listening, I think he had a good game.
Obviously, he's not listening. He's not listening.
The only time that Horsey's still listening is after the first 2 games. If Sydney's playing on a Thursday, Friday night game, he's still here.
That he's involved.
Yeah. But Sunday games, Horse not here.
No Jets.
We'll have to see how it goes. He might stay on and listen to the Sydney game. Might even fast forward to the Sydney game. Who knows?
Yeah, no.
But Jacko, I know you sent into the group chat early in the day. I would really love for Dangerfield to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he definitely did show up after that. Yeah. He's gotten the 3 votes. He kicked 3 goals, and I think he had a massive influence on the game. Josh Kennedy gets the 2. He was strong in the Sydney side, and Jake Lloyd as well. And VK, you've made me put here no All Australian exclamation mark. What's everyone's thoughts on him not making All Australian?
I think the squad was pretty much perfect except for Lloyd. A big watcher of ours, Jack Davidson loves Lloyd, and he wasn't very happy with it at all.
He's the best defender in the competition, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he's not even in the All Australian squad. But it doesn't matter because remember, Matt Priddis didn't make the All Australian squad, but still won the Brownlow. So does it really matter? I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, true. And so I think he could have made it over Burn Jones.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know what that bloke was doing there.
Oh, maybe Butter. Could he make it over Butters, or it has to be a certain number from each position?
I have no idea.
Because Bryn Jones had a better year than Butters, didn't he?
Yeah, but Butters is another option for forwards. So, I'm not sure.
Another talking point though, guys. I've still got Geelong as going all the way. How far do you reckon Geelong can go?
I don't think they can win it, but they will win a finals and they won't go out in straight sets. They'll probably make it to the prelim, I think. They'll make it to the prelim or grand final. One of the two. But I think just probably their lack of forward options. If Hawkins gets taken out of the game, then they're left with Gary Rowan, who is the worst big game player in the competition, closely followed behind Jack Darling.
Yeah. But if Dangerfield goes forward though, then maybe that makes it easier for Geelong. But another shout out to Jetta Hansen, who has said to me in the past week that Geelong will go out in straight sets and mark his words. So let's see if Jetta gets that one right.
Well, they definitely could, because if they lose to Port Adelaide, which I actually think they will, I think Port Adelaide are going to beat them. I think they'll learn from their mistakes and make sure that they have 2 players on Hawkins or whatever. Then they end up having to play West Coast or Collingwood. So I think they could easily lose to West Coast, Geelong, even though it'll be probably at the Gabba as Geelong's preferred home ground. But yeah, I think that West Coast can easily knock them off.
I agree.
Wait, who do they play? Oh, right, yeah. No,
so they play Port Adelaide, and then they'll either play... They can win that, and then they'll end up playing, like a Brisbane or something.
I agree. I reckon the loser of the Port Geelong game go out in straight sets.
That's pretty
cool.
Enough, yeah. That's not bad at all. Yeah, because I think Port Adelaide would also lose to West Coast.
I think that side of the bracket is the most deadliest, some might say, with West Coast, Collingwood, Geelong and Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
I think, but obviously the changeover in the bracket where it goes like that. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. VK, moving on to the Freo Dogs game.
Yeah, so the Dogs really showed their class in this game. I thought it was going to be quite close. I actually thought Freo were going to win this with how well they've been playing. But the Doggies midfield too good. Libba and Hunter, not the big names of the midfield like McRae and Bonds, but they really stood out this week with big performances. Like we were talking about before with the Dogs being back in finals, lads, how far can they go? Can they repeat what they did in their premiership year? They're in a pretty similar position that they were. Obviously, it most likely won't happen. Well, in my opinion, it won't. But is there a possibility?
I think there's a possibility in that anyone in the finals can win it. I don't think. I mean, you've obviously got the favourites to win it, but I think there's plenty of rooms for upsets, like we've said. But I don't know if either St Kilda or Western Bulldogs can go much further than. Oh, actually, I think I mentioned earlier that I can see Bulldogs going all the way to the prelim, so I can't really change my statement. But I think if St Kilda or Western Bulldogs win, I think they can go all the way.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of similar. I think that out of this year, it's probably the most evenly final series we've had in a while. Instead of having, a powerhouse side, like Richmond aren't at the peak they were 2 years ago. You obviously haven't got Sydney and Hawthorn dominating as well. So I think you got quite an evenly spread of people in the final. I think 6 teams have a chance of winning it. The only 2 I don't see winning it are Collingwood and St Kilda. They're the 2 that I don't think can win it. Because I think if Brisbane lose, most likely, I think even if, I'll be going for St Kilda in the Bulldogs-Saints game because I think we can beat St Kilda quite easily, but Bulldogs I'll be much more worried about just because, those big game players that can really tear you up.
Yeah, if they can get if Wallace stays healthy because he came off late in the last game and Norton isn't out. If those 2 can play well, who are pretty much their only 2 forwards, then I can definitely see them doing well. But those 2 are out, then they're very much going to struggle with their forward line. But back to Freo, Sarong, is he the rising star this year?
I think him or Noah Anderson.
Yeah, exactly the same as Matho. I think he wins it and Anderson comes second.
I agree, actually.
Yeah. If Isaac Rankin wins it, I will.
No, he can't win it. He shouldn't be in the top 5.
He shouldn't. But those commentators love the cheapskate Eddie Betts that he is. That's what he is. He's a poor man, Eddie Betts. Eddie Betts is a poor man Surioli. He's not even a poor man Surioli. He's a poor man Eddie Betts.
Fair enough. I don't like him. He's an absolute tosser as well. But on to the votes. Hunt with 3. Back into the side more in the second half of the season has been brilliant, as he always has been. Fife with 2 votes. Maybe I was saying it before earlier to Matho that Fife in the normal Brownlow could still poll well, but we'll have to wait and see. And then Libba with the 1 vote in this one.
Yeah, I'm surprised Libba hasn't gotten all 3 here. I think Libba's game was outstanding. I reckon he was best on ground by a country mile. He's up there with the player of the round with 3 different players. 25 disposals at 88% and 15 of them being contested. 8 tackles and he had 41 pressure acts.
Hunter had 35, a goal with 4 scoring shots on goal at 82% with 7 marks. I reckon he was. I didn't watch the game, but me and Jacko have spoken about it and we've come to the conclusion.
That Hunter
didn't watch the game. See, that's the thing. You're going off stats here.
You didn't watch the game either.
Yes, I did.
You did not watch all of this game.
I watched most of this game, and Liberatore was best on.
We're going to have to console each other after this episode and really see if there's any amendments that need to occur.
Amendments.
VK using his big words. He's studying hard for English, and all of a sudden he's using his big words now.
As you do.
Moving on to the final game of the round, Pies versus Port. Unfortunately, wasn't to be for my Brisbane boys with Collingwood getting the win, would have taken us to top of the ladder. It'd have been very exciting. It'd have been the first time in the Brisbane Lions history to finish top. First time since 1947. That's when Fitzroy last finished on top. So I guess, sort of the same clubs as you think about it. But, I think the big question is, we talked a lot about how far can both of these teams go. I said Port can go quite far, but I don't think Collingwood will. What about you guys?
I think, it's definitely the exact same. Port can go far, and I don't think Collingwood can go much further than maybe the prelim if they can get up in the first round. But
I really hope they don't. I really hope they get smashed by West Coast. And then, to be completely honest with you, I don't fully care that much who wins. As long as they're out, then I'm just like, we'll have fun watching the finals. But as long as they're in there, then it's a little bit nerve wracking for an Essendon supporter that hates them with a passion.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're at the conclusion that they're going to be at Optus against, they'll have nearly a full strength West Coast side. Shoe will be back. Sheed's been back for a little bit now. So Redden will be back. So, McGovern will be back as well. Kennedy also being back. So the only one, as we said before, we go missing out. So, I don't think Collingwood can beat them.
It'll be interesting. I think if Collingwood win an Optus, I think they will be very scary, but I can't see it happening.
I think the only way Collingwood would win that game is if Jordan De Goey picks up 3 votes.
Yeah.
I think he's
just dominates.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to have to kick 4 or 5 goals for them to win that game, which would be very hard against the West Coast defence that they have. Talking point, Mason Cox. I think one of the most controversial players in the AFL with some of the things he does. How have we seen his year as a whole? And I think against Port Adelaide he wasn't too bad actually.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think he gets his hands to a lot of them, but just drops a lot of marks. If he can start taking those marks, then he can be a regular team with that Collingwood side. But what about you guys' thoughts on that?
I know we mentioned last podcast. I don't know if that's actually up on the channel yet, Jacko. Can we confirm when that's going up?
It's going up now. It will be up yesterday when these guys are watching this.
Back-to-back epis. Get excited.
There you go. No, but I think we mentioned in last night's episode, I may say, the commentators mentioned that if Mason Cox can't mark the ball, he needs to bring it to ground for the Crummers to gather and do something with it. But I think, and a lot of Collingwood supporters think as well, Collingwood's forward line is possibly the worst in the final series.
Oh, it's by far the worst in the final series.
So I don't know if they have the players to crumb Mason Cox when he doesn't mark the ball, to be completely honest with you. And he doesn't mark it very often in big packs. He's played 2 good games his whole life. And if he turns up against West Coast, it may be a different story. But
the thing is, though, with Cox, the reason why we get so annoyed with a player like Cox, we don't really like him, is like Jacko was saying with the commentary. I was rewatching the highlights of the Richmond Collingwood, was it the prelim? A few years back, and he kicked 3 goals for the game. He had an amazing game, yes, but every time he got the ball, every time he took a mark with 20 metres out as his 3rd goal. All the goals were like 30 metres out, and the commentators yelling 3 of the best or 3 of the most perfect goals you can do, and it's stuff like that. As soon as Cox does one little thing, or because he's American, the commentators, they just go off. And you've seen players like they do it for Cyril back in the day, which is fair enough because it's Cyril Rioli. It can't be the same amount of attention for someone like Cyril and Mason Cox. Mason Cox not American. He's just like what's his name? Is that other guy that comes in for Collingwood that always replaces him? Darcy
Cameron.
As soon as he does something, he's not going to get the same recognition as Cox does.
Yeah, I think on the commentary, like you're saying, VK, how they get around Mason Cox, he's a bit of a showcase for the AFL and the media. So talking about him is going to bring them views, likes,
revenue,
stuff like that. Exactly. So, and I know that Davo talks about Channel 7 not bringing up the bad umpiring decisions or calls missed, But I believe that the Channel 7 commentary aren't allowed to actually talk about the stuff that the AFL do wrong. You'll notice that they'll replay the bad decision. The cameras will replay the bad decision, but the commentators don't say anything about it. That's a terrible decision. They don't say any of that. They just say, oh, they might have missed a call there and move on with it.
Yeah.
I don't think they're actually allowed to. And I think the biggest thing with Channel 7 is they talk about Mason Cox because he's a big talking point. And like we're talking about him now, he's creating something for the AFL to create revenue off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know that, I especially when, when there's a lot of talk about how footy has become boring and crap and whatever. I remember that first game, St Kilda versus Carlton, I think it would have been. It was something like that when everyone was saying footy's done, footy's boring. They hyped up everything to be amazing. I remember when Ben Long took that specky, they were talking about, mark of the year, mark of the last 10 years when it wasn't that good of a mark, but they had to hype it up as the producers tell them at Channel 7 because,
Exactly.
I think it's just the way that they get told to commentate because, they don't want to be controversial, especially in this day and age, and you say one thing and your career's over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Media,
especially on free-to-air TV. And Channel 7 are the main channel for the AFL. So Fox Sports trying to compete, they may as well get paid and bring some controversy into the game.
Yeah, exactly. I think the biggest thing about Collingwood not being able to perform is their forward line and their lack of effort their players have. If I was a Collingwood supporter, I'd be absolutely furious with the performance they put up against Port Adelaide because their forwards' lack of effort is an absolute joke. Jaden Stevenson is a joke of an AFL footballer. He will not go in and get in the hard ball ever. He is a soft footballer, which is terrible to say, but he is soft and will not go get a hard ball. There was a couple of times when he flinched to try and get the ball. Even the commentators picked up on it. I think BT spoke about how he was bracing for impact before he even, before he tried to give the ball off, he was, trying to protect himself before actually getting the ball, which you can't do in a big game.
Yeah, he's a bruiseless footy player, and I think everyone wishes that the 2018 Jaden Stevenson comes back. But I think after his big scandal with gambling on his own games, I don't think that will ever return. I think that's really hit his confidence. And like you said, Jacko, he's a coward, I reckon, honestly. He goes in for the brawls and stuff, but you'll notice that he's on the outside of the brawls. He doesn't start them. He doesn't do anything, and he'll stand up for teammates, which is a good thing. But I think he's a bruiseless footy player.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's the same thing. I've never seen Will Hoskin-Elliott chase someone in my life. I've never seen him once run. Never seen him sprint when he doesn't have the ball. It was noticed a couple of times how easy, his direct opponent, Dan Houston, had like 4 intercept marks in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, he didn't compete once. He didn't chase once at all. Jordan De Goey, he does put up an effort in that forward line. I think, him and Cox actually, I think, do put in effort, which is something you can praise Cox for, that those guys do put in an effort. But Josh Thomas doesn't put in an effort trying to stop the ball coming out. Jamie and Elliott puts in an effort when his team's winning. As I said, he's too inconsistent as a footballer, and he doesn't seem to be putting in the effort that the other players are. Myercheck, I think he's another one. He's all right, but he's not the player that Collingwood thought he was at the start of the year.
No,
I'm getting all excited about Brody Myercheck. It's like he's not a good footballer, and when it's evident now, he ended up finishing 15th or something in the Coleman, or not that good of a footballer. So I think that's just the biggest worry for Collingwood, that their lack of forward pressure and their lack of, just forward line in general. None of their key forwards are good players. Jordan De Goey is their only elite forward that they have down there. And even him is very hit and miss and inconsistent.
Yeah,
so,
inconsistent player, I reckon.
Exactly. So, yeah, there's a lot of troubles for them, and they're going to have to go out and get some forwards next year if they want to push back for their premiership spot.
There you go. Just a quick talking point as well. Are you finished with the Collingwood Port game?
Oh, well, we'll do quick votes. 3 votes to
Yeah.
Rockcliffe. It's dominant, kicked a goal. Got the ball out plenty of times. 2 votes to Houston. We talked about before. Took a lot of marks. 1 vote to Robbie Gray, who who played a lot more midfield time in the last couple of weeks instead of forward. Who was very creative for that midfield.
Yeah, fair enough. There you go. No, back to the Bulldogs Fremantle votes.
Mm-hmm.
I've just gone on here. The report for the game, they've gone the goals for both sides and the best players for both sides. For Fremantle, Fife, Sarong, Ryan. Western Bulldogs, here we go. Liberatore first. Hunter, Bontempelli.
Yeah,
So
it's not in order.
It's the JLJ multi though. This ain't anyone else.
That is true. I'll give you that, VJ. That is very true.
And wait, before we finish up, I've just got to say about the Essendon game. I forgot to add. I give Tiffin Woody a lot of stick, but he was our only player in that Essendon Melbourne game. I always say Tiffin Woody's only firing when we're good, and I got to say when I'm wrong. But he was the only player that brought us back in that game. He was smashing into players, bumping them, chasing down, tackling when we were at our worst. And so I just want to give a little bit of credit to Tiffin Woody that I bag a lot in the Essendon side.
There you go.
Yeah. So,
Jaden Stevenson.
You guys have forgotten?
No.
No.
All good.
No. Remember everything now?
No, I remember it all.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast. Big things planned for JLJ in the future. A lot of in real life stuff. In real life stuff coming. That's going to be very exciting for the channel. So remember, JLJ to 100 subscribers. Potential live stream in 2 weeks' time. We'll have to have a look into that. And, check us out on, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok.
Get on the TikTok.
Get on the TikTok. We post once every couple of months.
Jacko, are we getting the game reviews back? Are we getting the game reviews back? I look forward to
for the finals. The game reviews will come back.
Sounds good.
Thanks for listening and see ya.
See ya.
Later.